At the conclusion of the Second World War, the baby boom erupted across North America. In every community, a sharp population increase was felt, including in Hamilton, Ontario. New homes were being built to house the growing families, and within each blossoming community, schools were built, serving as the beating heart of the new developments.
We moved to the Depot Road in White Church in February of 1962. At that time, we had 3 school-aged children and 1 non-aged child.
In the township of Glanford, small one-room schoolhouses had always been enough to educate the local children. Bell School educated the residents near Tyneside Road, while nearby Stone School on Airport Road took care of others in a similar one-room school.
And there were one-room schools, and we started there, and when I was there was grades 1 to 4, so each row was a different grade.
By 1960, the age and small size of these 2 schools meant they could no longer accommodate the number of children. In May of that year, the school board examined several potential sites and decided to approach Mr. Earl Smith concerning 11.3 acres of property on the corner of Nebo Road and Whitechurch Road. Plans were drawn up for a purchase price of $8,750. 2 years later, the Board of Trustees decided a new school should be built immediately, with 8 rooms and modern facilities in order to give quality education to the children in southern Glanford.
When they built the school, like I said, I was in the one-room school, number 4, over on Tyneside, and there was a lot of hype. You know, we talked about it, the kids, we all knew we were going to a different school, and it was going to be Bellstone, and it was going from a one-room schoolhouse to a multi-room school building. And it was going to be, you know, it was exciting in that direction, but we really didn't know the era that we were leaving behind either. It was a one-room schoolhouse.
In April 1963, the erection of the new school began on Lot 13, Concession 6 of Glanford Township.
Every night after supper, that was our ritual. We would come over here to the site and walk in through and see what they had done during the day and gave our approval if we liked it or not.
I remember when they were building it, there was quite a to-do. They had to have a smoking room for the teachers. And I thought, well, several of us said, well, that's not any example to set for children. Oh yes, they had their smoking room.
It didn't have a hill, and it didn't have a pond where we played a lot, but it had a nice big field of mud at the time, but and it was basically a farm country school.
With shovel hitting dirt, many began wondering what to name the new facility. Many possibilities were given, one being to honor the name of a longtime trustee, Burton T. Griffith. Another suggestion was to name it the Maggie Johnson School, in reference to Maggie Clark, the wife of George Washington Johnson and of local fame in the song When You and I Were Young, Maggie, written by George in the mid-1800s. Maggie lived just north on Nebo Road, near the site of the new school, and attended the original stone school where George was her teacher.
The creek and the creaking old mill.
After much discussion and a Name the School contest, it was decided by the trustee board that the name of the new building would be Bellstone. In 1963, the school opened its doors. Although good progress had been made in the construction, the school wasn't ready to accommodate all classes starting in September of that year.
The school was not complete when we came in. And I remember a lot of the rooms, they weren't tiled yet. The workmen were still here, pounding nails, pouring cement. I remember them pouring the tar on the roof of the school, and I still distinctly remember that smell of the tar. Remember them pouring the tar mat outside for the play area, and those smells were not very pleasant.
It was decided that the 3 finished rooms of Bellstone would be used, in addition to keeping the Bell and Stone sites open until the building was completed.
When I first got here, it was like I said, it was halfway through grade 5. And that's a rough time frame, but it was grade 5, and it was all of a sudden in quite a few more students in the school at the time, and then you go into a classroom and you had your own classroom now, and you didn't, there weren't 8 grades in the school, and in the one room I should say, and things like that. It was complete different completely different from what we went through in the first 4 years of school.
At the time of opening, there were 207 students enrolled. The official ribbon-cutting ceremony was held on June 18, 1964, with Chairman Mr. Milford L. Smith handing the keys to the first principal, Mr. Steve Karras. Over the past 50 years that Bellstone has been educating our youth, many fond memories have been made.
I think my earliest memory here is arriving to see the students. I was quite a young teacher at that point. Had only been teaching very few years, and this was a new school to me, and it was a newer building than the one that I'd been working in. And so it was kind of exciting to see a new building, new students, big open fields around it. It was good.
I remember I was working as secretary for the principal, who was Steve Karras, and he was much younger than I, but I always called him Mr. Karras. He always called me Mrs. Oakes. It was 1967. You know, you didn't call anybody by their first name. You wore a dress. You didn't wear a pantsuit. You were obliged to go by the rules. And I had been brought up to call my superior by his, proper name, and that was the way I did it.
I remember Mr. Karras, the principal, with his clickers on his shoes and clicking up and down the hallway.
One was the thrill of actually being able to ring the bell for recess. That was always very interesting. And then there was a door that was at the back of the school, and we always were wondering what was actually down there. And now in my later years I've discovered it's the boiler room, but it was always a big mystery what was in there.
We used to have the field day here for all of the schools from the area out in the backfield, and we would organize the races and the jumps and the ball throws and things, and it was always fun.
The school was all abuzz in late May and June with the track and field event. Parents came from around the area to help with the events, lunches, and just to be part of the afternoon activities.
I do remember it being one of the best days of the year because we were able to, miss a day of school in the back, and I was always pretty good at the long jump. So.
But I do remember that I did take part in 2 of the field days. That's for the whole township, when the kids competed against one another. And they were usually blistering hot days. And we had hot dogs and cold drinks, and I think maybe donuts, but I can't. It's a while ago.
We always seemed to master field day and baseball, and we were to be reckoned with. The Bellstone kids, I don't know if it was the big farm kids, I don't know what it was, but the smell of the turkey farm was right across the road from us. And when those turkeys, they could get ripe pretty, in the summer. I remember that smell.
The year that Stalco had their big strike, Charlie Dalglish went around the neighborhood and brought everyone a turkey.
We had music concerts where the parents were invited, and that grade 5 and 6 room was, there was a panel there that you opened up and the whole room became, this was before there was a gym, of course.
I remember a lot of little concerts that we would have at the school where I played piano and organ for all the parents and teachers. So that was a fond memory of Bellstone.
Of course, the big event in 1972 was the Grey Cup Parade in Hamilton when the Tiger Cats were involved. And we had Bobby Jimby come out from Toronto, I suppose, with his silver trumpet. We led the parade with Bobby Jimby leading it and me pulling up the rear, and parents, and I think Mary Guyot was one of the parents who went to that parade. Certainly her son Gord was in that class. He and his buddies in grade 4 and 5 were, of course, interested in sports. They were playing hockey. They were going out every morning early, I suppose, to practice hockey. So to sing songs was not, that was not too manly. But when it came time to march in the Grey Cup Parade, that was okay.
And the teachers, I think we got along pretty good with most of them. But then, like I said, being farm kids, swatting the arse didn't really bother us much.
So that's when I learned to put on my teacher face. I could glower at my children from the choir and when they were sitting in the balcony at church. Then I had to put that same face on when I was in the classroom, like, settle down.
At one point I ended up in a grade 3-4 classroom with Mrs. Earnshaw, and her favorite discipline was up and over. So you'd have to stand up and lean over your desk, and she'd take the ruler and hit you. And there was a couple guys in our class that were known for up and over. And she'd say, up and over, Walker, and so he'd have to get up and bend over, and she'd lay the ruler to him.
There was many people over at number 4, the Bell School. We got the strap, and then we got the yardsticks, and we got the pointers broken over our knuckles when we were acting up. But like I said, you throw 10,000 bales of hay, a little piece of wood ain't gonna bother you much.
The first 3 days, apparently, according to my report card, were great. And then from there, I was very easily distracted and very much in my own world. So, yeah, and which basically was the premise of my whole existence at Bellstone all the way to grade 6. So I feel sorry for my teachers.
All of the kids were special. You sometimes remember the very good ones, and you sometimes remember the very bad ones. Sometimes those ones in the middle who are just doing their best to behave, you sort of, unfortunately, they sometimes fall through the cracks.
I did have a student here who was troubled. He was often a problem, but he was a nice kid. I had fun, but I remember one time he got angry and he ran away from school. Now, the country roads around here were a little scary for kids to be running out on, so I chased him and managed to catch him in the field out here, and we sat and we just hugged for a few minutes till he calmed down and came back in. But that's something that's stuck in my mind for 45 years now. He was a character. Characters are the ones you remember most.
And I had a lady, a Japanese lady, come in and cook teriyaki in electric fry pan. And the kids dressed up. They wore their kimonos, their house coats, and they had their plate, and she served them teriyaki, and they had their chopsticks, and there's their little lunch, their little metal lunch pail that says Snoopy on it.
Oh, Mr. Shuttleworth, he was such a neat guy, and I don't know, he just really liked kids, and he was really cut out to be a teacher, and he drove this little sports car, and he was it wasn't baseball, it was called a soccer-based team, and he was a coach, and A&W had just opened up on Upper James, so he took a couple of us to A&W and treated us, and then bought gallons of root beer and came back and treated all the kids.
You treat your students as real people. You befriend them. You try to work with them rather than drowning them in all the knowledge you have. It works out better. If you get the kids on your side, then life in a classroom can be very, very enjoyable.
Our fourth child became school age. He had Mrs. Daddy as a kindergarten teacher. She was excellent. Don't know how she ever put up with him for the year that she had him, but she was sure made of good stuff.
Mr. Bud Hall, he was our music teacher, and he would have us up, you know, singing and giggling and laughing, and we had an awfully good time with him, and he'd get a choir going and stuff like that. But he also liked baseball. He was a very, very avid baseball player. And at recesses or lunch, we'd be out there, and he'd be out there with the baseball, and we'd have a big game to match no other game. And he really enjoyed it, and we really enjoyed him.
I showed up at Bellstone in '92. The gym was just going through the process of being built. I had the opportunity to sit in on the plans when they were building them with Bruce Thompson and a few other board members. I was here the day we broke sod at the back for the building with Mr. Greenleaf was the director at that time, and a couple of counselors from this area. And I seen it from the shovel in the ground to finish. It was a great experience.
there was a lot going on here as far as they had a lot of fun days. They had hot dog and hamburger days, and they had actually, I've got pictures, and they showed of, they brought a horse to school on one of the fun days, and people got to ride the horse, and they had their tents that they built up and stuff like that, and the teachers dressed up, and everybody just, it was a very, very fun school for them, and I think truly they enjoyed all the time here, even though they had to go to school.
I enjoy being involved with them and doing whatever I needed, whether it be cooking hot dogs or hamburgers or helping parents, whatever. That's what the community of the school was all about. That's a nice, I miss that these days.
We had a great time together. It was really a very close-knit community.
Nice to see them out in the streets or in the bank, and I run into some of the former students. It's great to see, and they tell me what they're doing now with their lives, and it's great to see how things have moved forward with people, and you know, out in the arenas or whatever, I run into people, and everybody's always saying hi still, and that, so it's great to see that kind of stuff.
But it's just a difference now, like 50 years later, how things. But going through the school, a lot of things haven't changed here. The color codes still seem to be the same. Some of the stonework out in the hallway and the floors, like, I would have thought by now things would have changed a bit. But
we're actually raising our 2 boys in the same area, and they are attending Bellstone, which is kind of awesome to be able to go back to the school and celebrate this 50th anniversary.
I feel very honored and privileged to be able to be here for their 50th anniversary. That's quite a milestone for anybody, but they've had a long tenure of teaching, and there were some very good kids that have come out of the teaching end of it, you know, the schooling of it, I should say.
I've seen lots of families come through. I've seen kids now in the streets growing up in their 20s. It's been a great, it was a great go. It was a great school, great community.
I'd like to say thank you to the teachers and the staff, both past and present, for their guidance and their knowledge that enabled our students to move on with their education and their dreams. Thank you.
Bellstone School over the years has become known as the small school with a big heart, a name that reflects the nature of its caring and compassionate community. A name that will not be forgotten.